What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with our Week 11 college football predictions. As always, I got Ty joining me here. This week's breakdown, this week's games. But before we can do that, we got to talk about last week. And Ty, big winner, going 8-4. The only two games you got me on were the only two that we picked different through the week here. But I'll let you have the floor here. What game stood out to you the most, and which one was kind of the most surprising?
I'm going to go both teams in the Red River shootout, Texas and Oklahoma, both very impressive in their wins. I think obviously the score was a lot closer in the Texas game than the game really was. Vanderbilt putting up a lot of points late, but I don't know if we're ready to say Texas is back. They got a tough schedule, but their playoff chances are looking more real now than they did a few weeks ago. And then as for Oklahoma, I don't think anyone expected them to go to Neyland at night and get that win. And as just like Texas, they also have a tough schedule to finish, but they're very much alive in the playoff conversation. So we'll see if either of those teams can run the table and get in.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with schools you don't see here on this slide, and it's going to be the whole ACC. Just taking a huge hit, not only just with a few losses, but I mean, you see the college football playoff rankings this week. They're all just jumbled in four in a row. And for me, that tells me whoever wins that conference is getting in, and that's probably going to be the only team that makes the playoff there in the ACC. And, last week, not a good week for me, a good week for you. Um, we're square even at two under 500 here as we enter next week.
Yeah, I've been bouncing back. I started out terrible this year, like 2-12 or something like that. But we've been smooth sailing since then, so we're gonna keep it going.
Yeah, and we'll start week 11. I'm going USC to cover on Friday night against Northwestern. They're due for a bounce back game after an ugly win on the road at Nebraska. Jordan Mailata, his worst game as a starter. I think he's going to bounce back really good against a very weak Northwestern defense. BYU on the road at Texas Tech. I think 10.5 for an undefeated team is a lot. I know it's BYU and we saw them collapse last year, but I think it's a better team they got this year for them to possibly cover that spread. Rutgers -1.5. Ty, they're playing Maryland. It's November, Maryland here. So give me
Yep.
Rutgers -1.5. Iowa on the road or Iowa at home against Oregon. I like Iowa 6.5 here. I just think Oregon, I was telling you earlier, is just due for a loss. It's going to be one of the three teams. It could be Iowa, could be, it probably won't be next week. But it could be that Washington game as well at the end of the year. So I'm just going to take the points there against Oregon. And then Wake Forest, they've been playing some decent football, but Virginia has been playing scorch it out at the end, just somehow squeaking it out. And that's why I like the 6.5 for Wake. And then Navy plus 26.5 at Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame probably is going to run away with this game, but I got to take the points. I mean, 26.5 points is a lot of points, and Navy's looking to prove themselves after getting boat raced last week.
Well, I got one in the green for me this week, and it's my lock every week. Betting against UMass. No disrespect, but they haven't won a football game, so it seems like a smart bet. And Akron was getting or giving 11.5. Didn't matter. They absolutely waxed UMass last night, Tuesday, for when this comes out. So that's a good start. I'm going Penn State 14.5 at home against Indiana. I know people are going to roll their eyes at that one, but if you just look at the, blue chip talent ratio of both of these teams, Penn State is way above Indiana. I know Indiana's a much better team this year, but I think Penn State can keep that competitive enough to cover 14 and a half. I got Ohio State. Again, can't stand them, but I'm going to keep putting them in here until they don't cover a spread. It seems like every week they're getting or giving a lot of points, but it doesn't matter. They continue to cover. So give me them at Purdue. I'm going Auburn plus 6.5 at Vanderbilt. That is a really smelly spread. You look at that one, you think Vanderbilt's going to be favored by about 2 touchdowns at home. Only 6.5. Who knows something in Vegas? So I think that's just one that you got to plug your nose and ride Auburn. Same thing with Wisconsin. That's another one where the spread looks really small to the point where somebody knows something. So I'm going with the Badgers plus 11.5, maybe fighting for Fickle's job. And then Louisville, Louisville's a really good team who's being disrespected, and I think they're going to show that by dominating Cal. So give me them minus 20.5.
And then we'll move to our first pick of the week. Tulane goes on the road to face Memphis, an elimination game for Tulane, not only in the American, but pretty much for the college football playoff chances. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think this Memphis team is just too good. They've been playing some really good football all year. Their only loss came to UAB, a shocker on the road, but since then, beat South Florida at home by 3, destroyed Rice last week, and it's this game by East Carolina, by Navy. So Memphis, it's all right in front of them to coast to that American Championship if they can win this game. And I think that's going to be the case.
Yeah, I think this is almost an elimination game for these two teams. Just so many teams clogged towards the top of the American Conference right now, so I don't think they can either of them can afford another loss. But that being said, I'm going with Memphis at home. I think if you take out the UAB game, which was a really bad loss, this team would be by far the best team in the conference, and I think they've been playing by far the best football outside of that game. And last week they bounced right back with a win. So I think they continue their hot start to this season. And right now, they are the playoff team in the American. I see them keeping that for a while.
And then moving to the Sun Belt, you can tell there's already not as many good games this week as there were last week. We got Southern Miss going on the road face Arkansas State. I like Southern Miss here. They're already undefeated in Sun Belt play at 4-0. Arkansas State, I picked against them last week. It didn't work out well for me. Now they go home, and I'm still picking against them. But Southern Miss, I think, is a very sneaky team that could possibly end up in the college football playoff when it's all said and done. They lost to Mississippi State at the beginning of the year, which honestly isn't an awful loss because they've been playing every single team in the SEC tough. And then they lost to Louisiana Tech on the road, which was their bad loss of the year. But they went out, win the Sun Belt. I mean, their hat might be in the ring for possibly being that group of 5 team.
Yeah, I think Arkansas State's being a little disrespected here, given four or getting 4.5 at home. I'm going with the Red Wolves in this one, putting their name back in the mix in the Sun Belt Conference and kind of stirring up the pot a little bit.
Also at 12, you got Georgia going on the road to face Mississippi State. And I think this is going to be the Gunnar Stockton versus Blake Shapen game. Um, Mississippi State has been very good recently. It just hasn't translated to wins. I think this is going to be one of those teams you're going to look back, doesn't make a bowl game. They have Georgia at Missouri and Ole Miss at home. They're going to be 5-7 and possibly be one of the best 5-7 teams in recent memory by losing to overtime to Texas, losing in overtime to Tennessee, almost beating Florida in the swamp. There's just so many things that could have went the other way, and we'd be talking about possibly a playoff game here early in November if a few wins go to Mississippi State. But that's not the case. I'm going with Georgia. You can't bet against the Dogs, especially now that it's November. Georgia normally turns it up around this time.
Yeah, I think this one could be close. That 8.5 is a little enticing for Mississippi State because, like you said, they've played so many close games and could very easily be 7-2 or 8-1 if a couple bounces went their way. And Georgia has had a tendency to play a lot of close games this year, kind of play down to their competition. We saw that last week against Florida, where they kind of eked one out in that rivalry game. So, every week it seems like that's going to be the game that really wakes them up, and it's just not. They continue this trend. So, I think that being said, it's going to be another game that comes down to late in the fourth quarter. I don't think Georgia puts away Mississippi State early because I do think they're a really solid team. But in the end, like he has all year, I think Gunnar Stockton makes one more play than Blake Shapen, and Georgia wins a close one.
And talk about a huge game, not just for the Big 12, but for college football playoff implications. BYU goes on the road to face Texas Tech. And I think Tech hands BYU their first loss. It's a battle of the Bears. Quarterback for BYU, Bear Bachmeier. Quarterback for Texas Tech, Bear and Morton, technically Bears. Um, I'm going with Texas Tech here because I think this team has just proven to the nation that they're going to come out and just dominate you. Their only loss was to Arizona State, where I think everybody got shell shocked in that game. But since then, that game after, they went 42 zip against Oklahoma State, who's bad, put up 43 on the road at Kansas State, who's coming off a huge win, and they are just rolling. It seems like it's that one blip in the radar that gets overlooked, and I think it will because the Utah win looks even better now. Um, and I just think that it's all right in front of them. If they win this game, UCF and West Virginia, I mean, come on, they're going to probably win those ones. So they're going to probably be 11-2 or 11-1 heading into the Big 12 championship, and no matter what they do, they'll probably be in.
Yeah, I think BYU's magic that they've had this year, this really feels like a spot where it not only comes to an end, but I think Texas Tech will be in firm control of this game. I just think, like you said, there's very similar to Memphis, where outside of one really bad game, they've been a really dominant team. And I think that trend continues this week. I think that win at Kansas State was really impressive, really underrated because they had been playing much better as of late. So I think that translates really well to this week, and the Red Raiders run away with this one.
And Duke goes on the road to face UConn. Obviously, the storyline here is Duke, but I'm going to give the credit to UConn. UConn, if you go look at their schedule, yeah, it hasn't been the best schedule because they're an independent team, but they lost in overtime to Syracuse. They lost to Delaware by 3, and they've lost to Rice in double overtime by 3. This could be a 9-0 team if one play maybe goes their way, and this could be the signature win, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Duke is just on a roll right now. Obviously, they lost to Georgia Tech by 7, but they responded last week, showing me that this offense can score a lot of points against on the road, and I think that's going to be the case here. Duke, I wouldn't be surprised if they put up 35 plus here on Coast and probably cover that spread as well.
Yeah, Duke's been a really frustrating team to watch in the ACC because they've been one probably top three in talent in that conference this year and have lost a lot of games they shouldn't have lost. They've really played with their food in some of the games that they've won. But I think now they've really started to put it together. Obviously, maybe benefited from a late call against Clemson last week, but regardless, going in there and getting a win is never easy. So I think this team is starting to maybe find its groove here. Another road game this week, but I think they get it done at UConn. And watch out for Duke. They only have one ACC loss. This team could find themselves in the ACC title game come early December.
And the game of the week in the Big Ten, you got Oregon going on the road to face Iowa. I'm going with Iowa, the surprise pick here. Iowa's due for a big upset every single year. They get at least one of them, and I think this is going to be the game. If it's not this week, well, then I'm taking them next week against USC on the road. But I'm more comfortable here because they're at home. They can run the ball well. In Oregon, if they let Iowa run the ball, this is going to go exactly how they want. A 20-17 kind of game, low scoring. But Iowa, if they want to win this game, it's going to be a field possession battle. Now their special teams is very good at returning punts and kicks. So I think that is going to have to play a huge role in this game. If they can get, returns to the 40-yard line or even the 50, set them up for maybe a first down or two away from points. That's what's going to be the key here in this game if Iowa pulls off the upset.
Yeah, I really wanted to pull the trigger on Iowa because Oregon has looked a little lackluster as of late. Really struggled in that Wisconsin game, who has just been really down this year. But I just don't know if the offense is going to be able to have enough for Iowa. Best quarterback play they've had in maybe a decade, but I still don't know if it's quite enough because Oregon, when they're at their best, and we haven't seen them at their best, all year, but when they are, they can put up points in a hurry. And if that happens, I just don't see Iowa keeping up. I think they can keep it close for, maybe 3 quarters, but in the fourth, I think Dante Moore and that offense kind of push things for Oregon, and I think they kind of run away with it late.
In the game of the week in the SEC, you got A&M going on the road to face Mizzou. And if Bo Pribula's in this one, I think the spread would be down more to 3.5, 4. But it's not the case. Obviously, Matt Zollers making his first start since week 1 after him getting hurt and then losing to the job to Pribula. But he is back now because Pribula's done for the year. So at least he got a almost 2-week notice that he's going to be starting and preparing for this A&M defense that has been outstanding, but has given up some points at times. But I just don't think this is the week where that's going to happen. Mizzou isn't a team this year, at least, known for putting up a lot of points and being able to hang with these teams that can. So give me A&M here to probably put up 30 plus on this Mizzou defense, and I just think that's too much for this offense to compete with.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Missouri because I think this would be a kind of testy spot for Texas A&M if Bo Prabula was healthy. And I know Zollers was originally the starter, so not a huge drop off at that position. But I still think Prabula's running ability would be a huge asset for them in this game. So I think that's a big loss. So, even going on the road, I think Texas A&M, a lot of spots where they probably would have fallen in previous years, including the Death Valley game, they haven't. They've come out and they've gotten the job done every single time this year. So I think I have no reason to believe they won't do it again. And Missouri, it's unfortunate because this could have maybe been a playoff team if they stayed healthy, but I think they fall to 6-3 here and have a lot of question marks.
What was supposed to be one of the best games of the ACC this year, ABC primetime, early November. It's not even on a major network. It's on the ACC network at 4-4 and 3-5 Clemson. Preseason picks to be possibly the ACC championship. Um, I'm going with Clemson at home just because they're at home. If Florida State was at home, I'm probably taking Florida State. These two teams are awful this year. I mean, there's no other way to put it. If you're watching this game, you're either a diehard fan or you like comedy. There's no other two ways to put it because this game definitely won't be on my TV because, well, I still have YouTube TV, so I don't have ESPN. So there still won't be any way of watching this game.
They need to figure that out, first of all, and they're both at fault. But that being said, this rivalry had a 4-year stretch where this was must-watch television.
Mhm.
Jameis Winston mixed in there, Deshaun Watson, and plenty of other NFL players. And now it's just crazy how far it's fallen. Now we're playing it on the ACC network. A bunch of people can't even watch it. That being said, Florida State, they should have fired Mike Norvell at the end of last season, in my opinion. I don't know how you keep a coach at a school of that caliber when you went 2-10, and it started to show this year. And I'm just gonna say it. I would not be surprised if we see Dabo maybe venture over to Auburn at the end of this season. Wouldn't be entirely shocked. So, a lot of question marks surrounding both of these programs, but I think Clemson being the home team, I think they get it done. Much more talent on their side, in my opinion. So it won't be the prettiest game, but I think the Tigers get the win.
And then at 7 as well, you get Wake Forest and Virginia. And I threw this game on here because, well, it just seems like time is ticking for Virginia. And I say that because you go back to the beginning of October. I mean, you could even go back to end of September against that Florida State where they won in double overtime. They've won by 8 there, beat Louisville in overtime by 3, beat Washington State by 2, won a safety, beat North Carolina on the road in overtime by 1, beat California last week on the road by 10, which is amazing that they've, somehow didn't win by a one possession game. And I wouldn't be shocked if both of us are wrong this week and Wake Forest wins this game. Just because Virginia, it seems like I said, time's ticking and they're due for that loss. And why not throw some more chaos in the ACC this year, especially if Virginia loses this game, then that means the floodgates are open for the ACC championship.
Yeah, I think as a Virginia fan, you got to just be appreciating all these wins. A lot of people saying they're frauds. They shouldn't be at 8-1. There's games they probably should have lost, but this program looked absolutely dead. After the last few years, 3, 4 wins was kind of where they were sitting, and even their history, they're basically on par with Indiana. Just no real success as a program. So I think anything after this point is just gravy on this season. So I think they go out there this week. Maybe it's going to be another ugly win where they kind of eke one out, but I truthfully don't even think they should care at this point. Just appreciate every win from here on out, and keep fighting to get to that ACC title. So I think Virginia wins a close one like they have all year, but I think they get to 9-1 and keep their name in the ring in the ACC.
Then at 7:30, we got a doozy. It's LSU going on the road to face Alabama. That would have been the case if LSU would have taken care of business just a month ago. If they would have won a few games where, it just didn't go their way. That Vandy game, the Ole Miss game, and obviously Brian Kelly's gone. So it is a new look LSU team. So we're going to see how this team comes out. And I think they already know that they got nothing to lose at this point. So I wouldn't be shocked if they take some risks early and it works out for them. Because I mean, Bama, I don't want to say they're scared. They know that something's going to happen early and trying to get Bama on their toes. I think that first half is going to be a very close, if not LSU winning or tied at the half. But I just think Bama in the second half, they just have better dudes out there. It just comes down to it, talent in this game. And I like Ty Simpson over Garrett Nussmeier this year. So give me Bama here to win. I don't know if they cover, but I think Bama's going to walk away victorious and get to 8-1.
I think Alabama's going to get LSU's best in this game, whatever that may be. I think LSU was pretty embarrassed with how last year's game went in Death Valley. I think it was 42-13 final, something like that. So I think they've had a chip on their shoulder for this game coming into this season. So I think they will probably keep this close for a while. I was tempted to pick them to cover that 10, but their offense has just been awful this year. So I just don't see them. If Ty Simpson starts making plays late, I don't see how they're going to keep up on the offensive side of the ball. So I think just like similar to Gunnar Stockton, Simpson has just made plays in every game as of late, and I think that continues here for Alabama, and they win this game.
And then at 9 o'clock, I will be able to watch this one on Fox. Nebraska versus UCLA. What a great game to watch here at night. And it's going to be Nebraska coming out victorious. I think TJ Lateef, he's obviously not Dylan Raiola, but he's a true freshman. And obviously, they speak volumes of him that he is the backup quarterback. They're not going to redshirt him. Obviously, that means he's going to lose the chance to get redshirt this year, because they are going to start him these last 3 games. So that speaks volumes to, I think, how good this kid can be. And I think he's going to go to UCLA. The hype has dialed down here a little bit, losing, getting destroyed to Indiana, and then now they have a bye coming out of the bye, prepping for Raiola for a week. So now they got to prep on a kid that doesn't have much tape out there. So I think there's going to be a few trial and error things early in this game, and I think Nebraska's offense can capitalize. So I like the Cornhuskers still to find a way to win this game.
I just feel like I don't know if there's a lot of programs out there where the vibes are lower right now than they are in Nebraska. I felt like last week was really a game that could make or break their whole season. Because if they won that game, maybe you're thinking 10-2 playoffs with an outside chance. But not only to lose that game at home in the blackout, but to also lose Dylan Raiola for the season, I think the vibes just got to be on the floor right now. And UCLA has just been playing with house money ever since their 0-4 start, and they've been playing well for the most part. If you take out the 50-point loss to Indiana, but I think they get the good Nico back that we've seen in 3 of the last 4 games. I think UCLA's offense starts to move the ball, and I just don't know if I see it out of Nebraska's offense with a backup quarterback on the road. So I'm going with UCLA to what I thought would be pulling an upset, but I guess they're favored. So UCLA wins.
And then the last game of the week, I think it's on Spectrum TV. I don't even know that that was a channel. I couldn't even find a logo for it. So somehow this game is going to be broadcast. I might get this one on YouTube TV. Who knows? But I'm going with the Aztecs to keep it rolling in the Mountain West, move to 8-1 over a surprisingly good Hawaii team this year, which I don't think too many people expected them to be this good in the Mountain West this year. Their only loss in the Mountain West was to Fresno State by 2 at home and to San Jose State last week on the road by 7. So this Hawaii team has proven that they can hang with the big dogs this year. They still got an outside chance to get to the Mountain West Championship. Obviously, they'd have to win this game to do so, but I don't think that's going to be the case because I think San Diego State, the path for them to get to playoff is right there. They get Boise next week as well, so they can knock Boise out of the Mountain West Championship with a win. So San Diego State, I know we're talking about all these American teams that might make the playoffs, but lo and behold, if San Diego State takes care of business, I think they're going to be the team that gets in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think if those American teams start to cannibalize each other, which has already started to happen, I think San Diego State could sneak into the playoff as a group of 5 team. Might be between them and James Madison. So I think they go on the road this week and they get a win. They started this season with a 6-3 win over Northern Illinois, and I'm not gonna say I
Who's
watched
two and
it, but
six? Who's two and
who's
six?
two and six? Yeah, and so I kind of wrote them off after that game. I'm sure a lot of people did as well. But now their offense has started to play better, and this team has looked really dangerous. in the group of five ranks. So I think even going out to the island, which can be tough for some teams, really late kick, give me the Aztecs to stay red hot and continue to put themselves in the ring for a potential playoff berth.
Yeah, and that's gonna be it for you this week on the week 11 predictions. Check back next week to see how we did. And obviously we'll be breaking down these last 4 weeks of college football, the regular season, the championship games, and then obviously we'll talk about every bowl game as well as the playoff games. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.